Good afternoon, beautiful women. Good afternoon. Monica, you're with us again, and it's with us this afternoon. Good afternoon, beautiful women. Oh, I'm wondering, Gia, are you able to pin my screen? I'm not sure. Let me just see what's going on with the view. I think we're okay. Let me just do that. Let me just do that. So this is technically our last interview this afternoon for season 2, which always gives me a moment, but there's so much more to talk about. How do I say an end to this? So it's not really an end, but it is the last interview in this particular series. So before Rochelle joins us at 2 o'clock, what I thought I would touch on is just looking at the theme of meaningful work and life purpose and what are we here to do. This morning, I touched on childhood trauma and the things that can, the seemingly inconsequential things that can be having a profound impact behind the scenes on what we feel like we have the courage to do in the big wide world. And there is an evolution. There's an evolution in our lives that we get to be really mindful of. What is now, what was then, is going to change, and it will keep evolving. We are here to grow and learn and evolve every step of the way. So the work that we do in the world obviously is going to evolve and change. And as we know more, we do different things. As we develop different skills, we do different things. And if I think about my experience in the workforce and all the incidental things that gave me the confidence and the wisdom to do the work that I do now. And I know at some point I'm going to look back at Edwina now and think, oh, you little chicken nugget, you thought you knew so much. But in another 40 years, imagine what I'm going to know then. So, there gets to be this beautiful evolution. When I started in the workforce, I started in hospitality. So many of the women who have worked with me for a while will have heard me talk about my coyote ugly days. I actually worked for the mafia, unbeknownst to me. Innocent little Edwina was working for a nightclub that was run by the mafia. And I was like, wow, you get amazing tips here. Anyway, you live and learn. And so I actually loved working in hospitality. It was in, my early 20s, and I was living that life. So I was living in Cairns at the time. That wasn't the mafia stage. The mafia stage was in Melbourne. But I was living in Cairns for a bit, and, I was quite nocturnal, serving drinks, that fabulous nightclub music, nightclub scene. It was really fun. But came a time when that needed to end, and my health actually wouldn't let me continue on that journey. Then I ended up in real estate. I did secretarial work, ended up doing office management for a real estate company. I've got amazing typing skills. It's something that I still use to this day that serves me well. When I look at my kids that have grown up on, we didn't even have computers when I was at school. That's how old I am. But, I look at my kids now and my kids type like this and like this. It's bizarre. They don't learn to type. I can type. It's one of my proud skills. People look at me typing and I'm not looking at my fingers and it's just like this. And that's one of my proud skills. So that's another skill that I picked up along the way, as well as, the organizational skills that go with office management. And I'm kind of quietly looking at Monica, who's on Zoom with me here, because she knows that my organizational skills behind the scene, I'm very happy to hand those over. But I've got them. They're hidden away there. What else have I done? I did that for a while. And then, of course, I studied naturopathy and functional nutrition. So I had those days I worked in a health food store, and I did clinic time. It was part of being able to actually graduate. I worked in health food stores in Williamstown for the Melbourne people. So there was that phase. And then I got the surprise first pregnancy with my eldest son, who will be 24 this year. So it was a while ago. And I was very determined to be an at-home mum. That was something that was super, super important to me. And we had a little farm outside of in Ravenswood, outside of Bendigo. And so I kind of took everything and was able to stay at home. I had 3 babies in 3.5 years, and then a 4-year gap and my 4th child. And then my first marriage broke up, and I found myself, I moved back to Mount Denise, or back to a farm outside of Geelong. And I actually had a flower farm, and I did that for quite a few years. And I think if I had to think of all the jobs, and I've skipped a few, but I've had a lot of jobs, I've done a lot of things, and there's a lot of different skills that come together. And when we think about all these things and our life purpose, when I think about who I am and what I love to bring to the world, there's been a running theme of beauty in different areas of my life. And the flower farm is absolutely just something that brought me so much delight. I got to be in the paddock all day. We had horses and alpacas and chickens and dogs and kids. Do I put that in the list of animals? I think they were a bit in those days. Pretty feral kids, and I loved having feral kids. They barely wore shoes until they started school. I can still remember my eldest son moaning about having to put shoes on. But if I think about all of those pieces in terms of life purpose, they were all pretty much on point. They were all pretty much on point, because my purpose as a woman is to learn who I am and how I can be of service in the world. And if we thought about it as simply as that, we can complicate it. Sometimes I love to complicate things, makes it like I've got something more tangible to grasp hold of. But if we think about it in those kind of terms, if my life purpose is to work out who I am and how I can be of service, of course, it's going to be an evolution. Of course, there's going to be this sense of, well, I don't believe, I'm going to take that right out. I couldn't have done what I do now all those years ago. I needed to go through all those phases, fall on my face 100 times, make so many mistakes, have some wins, look at what worked, what didn't work, look at the sort of people that I had in my life. So there was a big chunk of my life where everything was reactive. Everything was about life happens by chance. And the older I get, the less I see that as having any truth in it at all. There are no coincidences. Nothing is happening by chance. We are creating our reality. We are creating the world that we live in. And, we all see the world in a slightly different way. What is one person's reality is quite different to another person's reality. You just have to have a conversation with one person who says the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Everything is a mess. Everything is upside down. Nothing is good. Everything, we get to, just be so afraid and scared and worried and focused on how the heck we're going to just survive. And then you can have a conversation with a person living next door, same suburb, same everything, same. And the person next door is like, oh my gosh, what a magic world we live in. So much possibility, so many amazing people, so much kindness and extraordinary humans doing amazing things. Aren't we blessed to be alive right now? They can have exactly the same amount of money in the bank account. They can have exactly the same qualifications in the world. They can have exactly the same number of children or no children. They can have grown up with the same number of siblings, parents with the same, all the same things. But there's just these little nuances, these little tweaks, these life experiences that mean that we look at the world through a different filter. So what one person gets to learn is not what the other person has to learn. It's different. And who says one is right and one is wrong? Because we are all on this journey to work out who we are, what our particular skills are, and how we can be of service with the skills that we have. So a big chunk of my life was about being of service to my kids. That felt like 99% of my life purpose. And I'm very proud of it. Very proud of it. There are, of course, lots of things I was talking about this morning. You know, when we know better, we do better. There's all sorts of things that I do very differently, but that's the beauty of hindsight. That's the beauty of having grandparents, some grandparents. You know, if you live and learn and decide to do things differently, approach the world differently, pass on the wisdom that you have learned. Always. So when I was 20, there was wisdom that I could pass on to a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old girl, things that I learned, things that I do differently. When you're 10, you can hold the hands of your 5-year-old as they're going, 5-year-old sibling that's going into primary school for the first time. We always have people that we are 1 or 2 steps in front of. So when you think about where you are, and the vast majority of women who are listening to this are 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, there is a heck of a lot of wisdom. You've probably done multiple jobs, some of them paid, some of them not paid. You've collected an enormous amount of information, so many skills. I've done this exercise in the past. They talk about the 10,000 hour rule. The skills that we collect, they say once you've done 10,000 hours, you are an expert in something. If you think about the number of hours that you've been driving a car now, if you think about the number of hours that you have been writing, that you have been cooking, that you have been cleaning, we numbered up the number of hours that we've been cleaning a house, we're kind of pretty qualified. If you think about the number of hours that you've spent working out how to manage illness, whether it's just a cold or a flu every season, or whether it's something more than that, you've learned so much. And yet we walk through the world looking at how we're not enough. I don't know enough yet. How would I ever help? Why would I be of any use to anyone? What could I possibly help anyone else with? And so when we look at that conversation through this lens of all the things that you have learned, you've learned how to dress yourself. You've learned how to dress your particular body type in a way that feels great. That's a skill. It didn't work the very first time you tried it. You've been playing with it. Now I don't even need to try things on. If I pull something off the rack, I can tell straight away if it's going to work on my body or not. So I can do that for somebody else. All of you can do that for yourselves. How to put on makeup. That's something I didn't learn until I was 50. I don't know if I've got my 10,000 hours in that one yet, but there's all these incidental skills. There's a beautiful, people that have worked with me know my love of movies. There's a movie that I love called Burlesque. I don't know if anyone's watched Burlesque. It's fabulous. It's got Christina Aguilera and Cher. And Cher owns a burlesque club, and Christina Aguilera comes to work there, and she's trying to work out how to put her makeup on. And there's a beautiful scene where Cher talks about watching her mother, who was a model, and her best friends pulling out their makeup cases and doing their makeup, and this whole ritual around that. And then Cher's showing Christina Aguilera how to do her makeup, and she looks in the mirror and her eyes are just full of wonder and awe at the transformation. She feels like an absolute queen. They're skills. They're all beautiful skills that we dismiss. So in this conversation of connecting to others, how do you think about how you support other people? How do you consider the skills that you've collected on your journey? Where are times in your life where you've made decisions that really landed you in a dark, hard place, and you needed skills to get yourself up and going again? And did that involve reaching out for help? I've told the story before of after my first husband left, I had 4 children under 8. My baby was 5 months old, and my eldest was, not quite 8 years old. And we got tonsillitis. The kids were sick, and I was just really trying to keep my feet under me. These babies still breastfeeding, looking after everybody, nursing everybody. And I ended up with this. I was so sick, I couldn't even swallow my own saliva. I ended up putting my 4 tiny babies in the car, getting into hospital. And once I was there, they put me on a drip and rehydrated me. And my kids still talk about they loved that experience because we didn't watch TV at home, and the nurses put on TV and fed them junk food. And they still talk about what a fabulous experience that was. But the doctor wouldn't let me leave the hospital until I rang somebody for help. That was one of the most profound moments. We have these ideas that we're supposed to be able to do it all, where, the idea of asking for help shows weakness. So all of these lessons, all of these experiences that we've had in our lives where we get to just think about what we've learned, the lesson in the hard bits that have actually been super helpful, that we get to reach back and help somebody else with. And I think on that note, it is the perfect moment to introduce Rochelle. Rochelle, thank you so much for being with us.
It's nice to join you all.
Thank you. We've got the majority of our audience are tuning in via live stream into Facebook group. We've got a few of our gorgeous members here on Zoom with us. Rochelle, I just wanted to pronounce your surname properly. Is it Courtenay?
Yes, that's right.
Good, I got it right. So perhaps, Gia, if you could pin us side by side just for this stream, please. Thank you. So Rochelle is the founder of Share the Dignity, which is all about giving dignity to homeless women. And this charity came to my attention quite a few years ago now. I had a client that was looking to find meaningful work, her life purpose, and she came across your program. Apologies, that's making noises. Oh my goodness, is that coming through? I apologize. There we go. She came across your charity and has done extraordinary things in pulling many dozens of women together, I believe, in the work that you do. So it is an absolute delight to meet you, Rochelle. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So this series is the Reconnection Revolution, and it's all about connecting to other people. And this particular section that we're talking about is creating meaningful work. So I would love if we could get a little background on your story and how you came to start this charity, what inspired you to start it, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. I started Share the Dignity back in 2015 when I was reading an article that Mamma Mia had written that talked about how there were 48,000 women who didn't have somewhere safe to call home. And, I could imagine what that would be like, not having somewhere safe to call home. But what I read next changed me forever, and Australia, that women were having to use socks and newspaper and wadded up toilet paper to deal with their period. And that I'd never thought of. That I was so embarrassed that I'd never given it a thought.
Yeah.
That I was always so privileged to have access to sanitary items, and that I wasn't the only person. And if I was thinking that, And I hadn't come from a home of wealth or anything like that, but I'd never thought that there was ever a time that I didn't have access to sanitary items. So when I Google searched it, it wasn't the first article to be written. And at that stage, my daughters were 16 and 14. And I thought, there is no way in the world they are reading about that in 10 years' time and seeing that it's still a problem. So back then I had my own personal training business. So I'd asked all of my clients, and they were mostly females, probably from about 35 to 60, to bring me a packet of pads or tampons for every wine they had in the month of March 2015. Wow. So it was a bribe, but it worked. Yeah. And so some ladies would bring me a bag and just say, don't count them, babe, let's just start training. And then we collected 450 packets of sanitary items, but we also put a collection box, and in actual fact, it was just a reflex box, into our local councillor's office, and set up Facebook on the 1st of March 2015. Actually, I didn't set it up. My daughter set it up. So I always say, surround yourself with people who've got skills in areas that you don't have, because you don't have all the skills in the world, right? So, so we gave them out to 5 local charities. I still live in the same suburb I've lived in all my life. So all of my girlfriends, close girlfriends, are all within a kilometre of where I live. But it wasn't long until another friend worked in a domestic violence service in a hospital, who called out and said, hey, can we grab some more period products? And I was like, yeah, no worries, we'll do another Facebook call out. And it was then in May 2015 that post went viral. So it started on my little Share the Dignity page that had about 200 people on it, that I would have known every single one of them. And then that got picked up by a Melbourne comedian, Rochelle, and she just shared it, and like me, was shocked that the problem existed in Australia. We now do 2 collections. We do 3 collections a year. We do 2 collections in March and August. Collection boxes now go out in all the Woolworths stores around Australia. And we have these incredible people that we call our Shiros. They are the absolute backbone of Share the Dignity. So if products are donated in Bendigo or Brighton or Broome, they stay in that local area to help. We help about 3,500 charities around Australia now. So those volunteers are the conduit to getting the products to where they need to go to. We also do It's in the Bag, which is like my favorite child. It's at Christmas time, where we ask everyday Australians to fill a handbag with life's essentials, things like shampoo, conditioner, toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, and soap, and sanitary items. And then we get them out to every woman spending Christmas in a domestic violence shelter or experiencing homelessness or poverty. So we drop them into Bunnings the last 2 weeks of November.
I've heard of that, the handbags before. So how do people find that? So people are starting them in that's not the donation boxes, is the period pads and so on. That's in supermarkets. And sorry,
that's
the
in
handbags
March and August, and then the handbags that you put together, you drop into any Bunnings from the 10th of November to the 27th of November or 26th of November. So it's always the last couple of weeks in November that we ask people to drop them in, and then we are busy as bees. We check every single one of those bags and get them and make sure that they're good enough to give to your best friend, because we really want that woman to feel special and loved, and that's probably for most of them the only gift they'll get. So we then get them out to the charities all within a month to be able to get them to them for Christmas.
There's been, I've heard talk, women over 50 in Australia now seem to be the rising greatest homelessness challenge. Do you know what's causing that? Do you know?
Yeah, look, I think that the cause of that is that we didn't have superannuation at the beginning. We don't get superannuation when we're raising children, and we were not brought up to be financially savvy. We were just brought up the same way our parents were brought up, and that was that the man looked after the finances, and what happens then. And that's why it's so important to teach yourself. But I mean, I'm talking about how do we retrospectively fix that? I don't know how we retrospectively fix that. I think that there really there are some programs that are out there now, and I'd gone out to pitch a Adopt a Granny many years ago, which is how can a woman who's over 50 who doesn't have somewhere to live help pay rent and look after children for a woman who's on her own with, and you know, we also, I was on my own for 10 years. The struggle is real of working and trying to pick your kids up by the time childcare finishes, getting the homework done, getting the food on the table. Surely there has to be people with a spare room, and there could never be too many people loving a child. So, you know, that's, if I didn't have Share the Dignity, I'd be on that mission, but there is only a certain amount of hours in a day. So I'm hoping at some stage somebody else picks that up and runs with it, because it really is a solution to making sure that that doesn't happen. But what we need to do is to make sure that we educate boys and girls at school about looking after their own monetary values. It's still the case that people don't know how to pay their bills when they leave school, or what balancing a budget is, or what you need to be depositing, what you need to have a home loan, or what makes sense to have a credit card, and all of those things. We're not doing that in the schools, and that is wrong.
Yeah, I certainly didn't have any of those skills when I left school. It wasn't something that was talked about at all. It wasn't something. I think that, I mean, I was just, before you came on, I was talking about, I was a single mum with 4 children under 8. I became a single mum. So the idea that we band together as a community and have, you know, have something set up so that people are supporting each other. I think there's so much shame, and there's so much indoctrination of belief that you go it alone. You've got to be able to do it, and if not, it's somehow a failure. I remember, you know, watching on your website, you've got a video of a young girl that's sneaking into a laundromat to steal a sock to use as a pad, and it was watching that really just hit me in the gut. I hadn't really thought about it before either. It's a big conversation, and one that we get to, you know, do more to spread. So if you were going to ask for help from the women who are tuning into this, and the vast majority of them are in Australia, what are the next steps that people can, you know, we've missed the August one perhaps, but what are the steps that we can do between now and Christmas?
I think the first step after today is have a conversation with every person that you know about the fact that Share the Dignity exists and what we do, because while we are a young charity and we're not known a lot, right? So you have a conversation with, maybe there's probably 1 in 10 people that know about Share the Dignity, and there's probably 1 in 10 people who are prepared to have a conversation about periods, let alone period poverty. So I think that, you know, when we take the shame out of a conversation, we create a space for it to be okay. So I think even having conversations about menstruation, menopause, all of those things takes away the shame. And I think that's the really important thing, right? So I always go on about the fact that if I had have known that my period wasn't normal and been taught what a normal period was, I wouldn't have suffered for 10 years with endometriosis, right? So it takes 8 years for somebody to get diagnosed with endometriosis in Australia. So why are we not better educating our doctors? Anyway, take me on a big tangent of that. So have a conversation. Let's make sure that we're conversating with our friends, but on social media today, what is Share the Dignity, what you've learned, but start putting together a bag. There is nothing more important than being able to give somebody that you're never going to meet a gift of hope in a handbag with life's essentials for Christmas.
That's beautiful. I don't know that I have seen that pink box in our Safeway here in Torquay.
You would only see it in Woolworths stores.
So Woolworths, Safeway.
Woolworths?
Maybe I'm old fashioned. I still call it Safeway.
They only go out in March and August.
So
the collection boxes, and then the big boxes that are at the front of every Bunnings store the last 2 weeks of November are there to get the bags.
Okay. So we get to keep our eye out at Bunnings, November. Last week in November.
But start putting together a bag. And if you want to do it with friends, it's a really cool thing to ask your friends to bring all different things, and you put together the bags with each other.
So do you have something on your website for people that want to get together, a bit of a team to do this? Do you register, or how is it set up?
Either. You can do it on your own. You can set up a bag packing party. There is a corporate way that you can do it. I'm heading to Melbourne in a couple of weeks, where Signet are putting together 2,000 bags as a corporate packing party. So, there's different ways that organizations can play a role in making a difference as well. And it's a really good conversation starter. I have been at many events where it doesn't matter how many seminars you'll have about trying to identify domestic violence in your workplace and making it safe for people to come forward. It makes it hard, but should you be standing around a table and you're talking about how this bag could make a difference, you'll hear stories about, oh God, I remember hearing from a man who says, I remember really vaguely when I was 5 and my mum and my 2 siblings, we'd fled in a car and didn't have anything. And so this man had never spoken about domestic violence before. So, it is a really good conversation starter in a safe space to do so.
Yeah. Well, it's people that are naturally inclined to do this sort of work are the sort of people that are pretty compassionate, hold a pretty nice space. Yeah. Very powerful. I love this idea, and I wanted to share this conversation in the hope that I could get a few more people on board to supporting you with this in November. So I'm super grateful for your time. And I think probably the best way for people to find you is just through your website. Would that be?
Absolutely. And even there's shopping lists. We do 3 different types of bags. You can create just a normal women's bag, a teen bag, or a mum and bub bag, but there's shopping lists. There's everything you need on the website.
Yeah. Love it.
Makes it super easy. We're all time poor, so I'm always making sure that anything you would want, we've already done, so you don't have to spend any time recreating it.
Yeah, and we're all walking into the supermarket at least once a week. If you're a bit like me, it tends to be almost every day.
Yeah, and picking up one item every week for your bag that's got to get dropped in November is no big deal for us, but for somebody who's getting it and they haven't washed their hair for weeks, or we have a lot of videos on our website of women who've shared their stories as well, and they're compelling.
I think it's worth going to view them for the people that are listening to this, because it hits your nervous system, it hits your gut, it hits your heart in a different way when you see the reality of this rather than just hearing it. So thank you so much, Rochelle. It's an absolute delight to meet you after hearing about you for quite a few years. I'm just in awe of what you've achieved. It's fabulous. It's really fabulous. Thank you.
We are all just the sum of the women who are surrounding us and lifting us up.
Exactly. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
All right. No worries. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. All right, gorgeous women. That's it for the second series of the Reconnection Revolution. I am so thrilled that you've joined us. If you've got any questions, any feedback, I'd love you to leave that in the Facebook group. And otherwise, we'll be sending out information on how you join us for the next series. All right, that's it from me today. So much love and bye for now.